Patrick Bet-David is an entrepreneur and advisor that shares thought-provoking perspectives on succeeding in business. He's the author of Drop Out and Get Schooled, The Case for Thinking Twice About College, and Doing the Impossible, The 25 Laws for Doing the Impossible. Pat has a passion for teaching the fundamentals of entrepreneurship and a first-hand understanding of what rags to riches means. With a desire to inspire others to become entrepreneurs and achieve their dreams, he is becoming a motivating recent success story for others. Pat, welcome, and thank you for taking the time today.
Good to be on.
I was wondering if you'd be able to tell the few readers or listeners that are not familiar with you, if you could share a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Iran. I lived there for 10 years. Escaped Iran 6 weeks after Khomeini died on June 3rd, 89. We left July 15th. I went to Germany. I lived at a refugee camp in Germany for about 2 years, and I came to the States, moved to Glendale, California, went to school right afterwards, went into the military, 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. And then when I got out, I decided to become a financial advisor day before 9/11. It was exactly a Monday when I became a financial advisor, Series 7, 66, 31, 26. And then after that, I went to Transamerica for about 7.5 years. And in October of 2009, I started an agency called PHP Agency with about 66 agents out of Northridge, California. Now we have over 5,000 insurance agents in 49 states. So at the same time, I started dabbling with a little bit of social media, and then a few friends suggested I started a YouTube channel. I did in November of 2012, and that kind of grew from what it was back then to now roughly 450,000 subscribers. And it's been a fun journey with that new YouTube channel called Valuetainment.
And it's grown quite a bit too. I don't recall the last amount of subscribers that I saw, but it's a fairly popular channel.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
What do you think that it takes to be a successful entrepreneur?
What do I think it takes to be a successful entrepreneur? I think the more clarity you can have on what you're solving, and here's what I mean by it. A lot of times, you'll have somebody that'll say, I want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Elon Musk or the next Steve Jobs or whatever it may be. And you're almost always going to be disappointed with that, because if the solution is purely coming from a place of competition, there's always going to be somebody bigger than you in the marketplace. Always. I mean, they made a joke about Jeff Bezos because he became the richest man in the world and it lasted 4 hours. And then, Bill Gates took over. And then he's back at the top again with a $100 billion net worth. It's always going to be changing. Nobody stays there from the top, from the beginning, and dies being at the top forever. There's always going to be competition. Step number one is being clear about the industry you choose. So you have a lot of different industries. And typically I suggest you choose something you're familiar with. For instance, let's just say if my dad was a realtor, okay, and he owns 17 properties. And I watched him negotiate. I watched him under stresses he went. I watched my dad go through some highs and lows, and and I was looking at him when he was doing very good, and the market tanked, and the market, when it tanked, he capitalized on this, and I saw some of the areas he made a mistake in, and I saw some of the areas he did good in. So maybe I have a little bit of an extra edge on somebody because I saw my dad doing real estate my entire life. So maybe that's something I can get into. Somebody else may say, well, I was, growing up, I was a bodybuilder or I was an athlete and I went to the college level. And when I went into college level and I played football, I noticed I don't like the equipment. The equipment sucked and high schools didn't have good equipment. What if we can get something, because sometimes you don't get the grants and the dollars, and what if we can find some equipment that's not Under Armour price, or Nike price, and it's 50% cheaper, and I get them to be made less, but the quality is good, and I compete with that market, and I start off with some high schools because I know that, right? So step number one is industry that you choose. And then next one is positioning. And what I mean by positioning is it's always important if you can have somebody you can watch. always important if you can have somebody you can shadow. You know, Bruce Lee had somebody he shadowed before he brought his art to the States. Every single person had somebody they shadowed. Jordan shadowed David Thompson and Julius Erving. Kobe shadowed Jordan. You know, LeBron shadowed a lot of these guys with Magic, MJ, Kobe. If you can find somebody you can watch and shadow, and you work in an environment, and then you study what's being right and what's not being done, that helps you. And then last one is realizing where you fit well. And what I mean by that is, am I the sales guy? You know, maybe I'm good with numbers. Maybe I want to be a CFO. Maybe I want to be a good chief operating officer. Maybe I make a good founder. Maybe I'm the good innovator. Maybe I'm the idea guy. Maybe I'm the engineer, because sometimes we think entrepreneur is just about always you starting the business. Sometimes you may start a business with a few other people, get a few equity there, and you're using your strength in a way that helps you build a business, and you still own a piece of that. So you still end up getting a victory. So there's not really one way to give that answer to that question, but those are some of the things I would share with someone who wants to become an entrepreneur.
Okay, great. Most know that for entrepreneurs to succeed, it requires hustle and commitment. Do you think there's a formula for success or anything that gives them a real edge?
You said hustle and commitment. Do I think there's a formula for someone to have an edge over others? Yes. I mean, obviously, you got to know, if you don't work hard, if you choose to become an entrepreneur and you are not willing to have 60, 80, 100-hour weeks, the game's not for you, because someone is going to put you out of business. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to be able to stay competitive enough in a marketplace, depending if you want to scale your business. So number one is you got to have a work ethic. You definitely have to have a work ethic where, you know, I remember when I first got started, my dad was a 99-cent store cashier. And when we lived in Iran, if there's one thing I saw my dad do, my dad worked hard. He would leave every day at 5 a.m. and he would come home every night at 9 p.m. And he did that 6 days a week, because in Iran, your Sunday here in the States is Friday in Iran, right? So I picked up the work ethic from him. So when I got into business, my confidence came from knowing I'm not afraid of working hard. That was step number one. Second thing was your speed of learning and your speed of improving. So I would look at somebody, and I would look at somebody that's making a phone call. I worked at Bally Total Fitness when there was, back in the days when Bally's used to be around. I would watch these guys making phone calls. And there was a guy to my left, his name was Danny Molina, then another guy named Cisco, another guy named Dexter, another guy named Ruben Rimmer, another guy named Joe Reyes, and another guy named Silvio Reyes. These are pretty much all their names. This was in 1999. And I would watch their style of selling. And I was frightened of making phone calls. So I would look at the one guy and I would say, oh, he uses his charisma. Every time he makes phone calls, he's smiling. And I saw the other guy, oh, his pacing is so smooth that he's not talking fast. Oh, the way that guy talks, if he called me like that, I would have never done business with him. So it's good for me not to sound like that. Oh, I like how he sounds non-threatening. Oh, that question was a phenomenal question. Oh, I really like what he said when that person gave that objection. And I would make a list, and I would grab my recorder, and I would give all the objections. Well, I want to think about it. And then, boom, the objection I would give back. I don't want to have a contract. I don't want Bally's because you guys have 36-month contract. I would write my rebuttals. And I would go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then all of a sudden I became rookie of the month, rookie of the quarter, rookie of the year. And I'm running one of the bigger clubs. And I watched a lot of my peers. They took their time on improving. They weren't that detailed about how to improve their game. They learned the basics like everybody else would learn, and then they would stop paying attention to the details. So number one is outwork. Number two is out-improve. And then number three is outlast. Let me explain why outlast. Business is purely a game of momentum. You're in the game of momentum. And anybody you and I see who may be like godlike, some people will say, oh my gosh, that guy has some genes. I tell you what, he is just absolutely genetically amazing. And, you know, look at this business guy. He is so fantastic, and he's so much above everybody else. And we look for so many reasons. And by the way, I can even bring it to a lower level. a person could be a realtor in Vancouver. And there is this one realtor in Vancouver that everybody knows. Everybody knows. Her picture's everywhere. She's on every brochure. She's on every bench. She's on every billboard. She's on every magazine. She's in every restaurant's menu. Right? Everywhere you look at, you see her face. Everywhere. And this other realtor says, well, the reason why she does so well is because, she's attractive. Okay? And then excuses. The reason why she does so well is because she has a nice car. Another excuse. The reason why she does so well is because of this. No, the reason why she did well is because she lasted. Momentum compounds when you're able to continue your efforts. If I go fully focused at 60 hours a week for 4 years, and you and I, let's just say, we both work hard, we're both improving at the same pace, but I go at this pace just like you. I go for 3 years, you go for 5 years, and we have another guy that goes for 10 years. The other guy that goes for 10 years could have half the talent that you and I have. But what he has over you and I is he lasted longer than us. And because he lasted longer than us, he has the bigger opportunity for compounding effort and exponential growth to take place in his business. This is a very, you don't hear too many people talk about exponential growth or compounding effort because we're always trying to figure out the secret right now. I'll give you one example on exactly what happened yesterday. I just flew into LA 2 hours ago. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas right now. Yesterday, I run an insurance company. Yesterday, we sold more insurance in a single day on November 30th, one single day, than we sold in my first 5 years of being in business. Now watch this. First 5 years of business, that's roughly 1,800 days versus one day. We sold more yesterday than my first 5 years in business. How is that even possible? Well, because I've been in the business now 15 years. The compounding efforts of this has gotten to such levels that's no longer fair because the doubles are bigger doubles. Unfortunately, very few people can last that long because they eventually have a certain level they hit that they get on cruise control and they wonder how come they're not having the next level of success. And so step number one is you got to be able to outwork your marketplace. Step number two is you got to be able to improve very fast, especially today since things are adjusting so quickly. And number three is you got to have stamina. You got to be able to last a long time to be able to give yourself a standing shot of making it in business.
You mentioned earlier how it was important to have someone to shadow. How important is it for entrepreneurs to have a mentor?
I think it's very critical. If you look at the formula, how the man upstairs created it, he gave us a mom and a dad. Preferably, he wants both of them to be there. Why? Because kids need a mentor. And the way the system was created is eventually the kids are going to become mentors to their own kids. And our first mentors we have are our parents and our siblings, right? Then it's teachers and other people. It is an absolute must on who you have as a mentor. Now, some people will say, well, the reason why I don't is because there's just not that many mentors in the city I live in. Most of my mentors are dead mentors, because I have them as mentors through the books that I read. Your mentor doesn't necessarily need to be a face-to-face mentor. There's a lot of ways nowadays that we have access to YouTube where someone can sit there and watch hundreds of hours of somebody on YouTube, and the person teaching has no idea that a guy named Jack out of Norway has been studying him, and because of the content he's studying, he's taking his business from doing $200,000 a year to $2.8 million per year. So mentors are everywhere. Now, obviously, if you are one of the fortunate ones where you have access to somebody locally that can give you direction, that you can shadow and you can watch what they're doing, you have an edge. But if you don't have that, the alternative today is better than it was 20, 30 years ago.
What sort of hurdles do you believe prevent entrepreneurs from realizing their full potential?
Did you say their full potential?
Yes.
So the full potential is different than success, right? Because, almost everybody I know who starts some kind of a business, they experience some results. Almost everybody I know experience some results. full potential is a self-sabotage with victories. I mean, I cannot tell you how many people I watch on what, like, let's just pick a guy named Bob. The most money Bob's ever made in his life is $4,000 a month. Good guy, good family guy. He does his part, but his most money he's ever made is $4,000 a month. You will learn a lot about Bob when he makes $20,000 in a month. Because he makes $20,000 in a month, there's typically a few different ways to respond to it. I'll give you all of them. One of them is the person says, oh my gosh, I just made $20,000 this month. That's 5 months of my income. And so they go on cruise control for the next 5 months before they run out of that money. And then they're back into panic mode. And then they start making money again because they're panicking. Because their entire lives, the only way they've made money is to survive. It's purely been a survival type of deal. Now, another guy will make $20,000 in a month, and he'll say, oh man, I made $20,000 in a month, but you know, Jack's making 30. So I got to be able to make 30 because I got to be able to get that, you know, Mercedes-Benz AMG package, and I got it because he drives a 7 Series, so I got to get a S550 Mercedes. That's what I need to do, and I need to get to 30. And so, yeah, I'm going to go take this 20,000, and I'm going to get that car, and I'm going to buy a Rolex, and I'm going to buy a new suit, and I'm going to buy a new this, and they buy, right? Thinking they've already gotten there. And there's another guy that makes $20,000, and he tells himself, you know, I made $20,000, but $20,000 is not going to help me become financially free. I need to make a lot of money. And the money becomes based on a freedom number. For instance, I will be free once I have $3 million in a bank account. I will be free based on the math if I have $5 million in a bank account. I will be free if I have $10 million in a bank account. So there's a formula to it, right? If they make that money. Then the other one is the last person, which is the last person is somebody who makes the money based on a purpose that they have. And what I mean by purpose, the purpose isn't just to make the money. So you have lowest level is survival, okay, just to feed and pay the bills and all that other stuff. Second level is status. I got to do better than my cousin. I got to do better than my sister, my brother, my best friend, my guy, my local guy. Number 3 is freedom. I actually need $2 million to be financially free so I can pay off the kids' schooling, you know, pay off the house. You know, for my wife and I have some money set aside for retirement. And the last one is purpose. Purpose is bigger. You know, I've put on this earth. I've had an incredible life. You know, I'm grateful for my parents, for the country I live in, for the money I've made, for the industry I found, for the wife, for the family, for the friends, all this other stuff. You know what I want to do? I don't think I was put on this earth just to make money. I got to make a difference, and I got to give back. So I'm going to go out there and contribute. I'm going to build some leaders. I'm going to develop some people. I'm going to produce something that's going to benefit other people. Then it comes purpose. So when you ask that question on full potential, I want to make sure I unpack it so it's not just giving a general answer, because the biggest enemy people have on why they rarely ever reach their potential is success. They reach a little bit of success and they don't know what to do with it.
When you think back to when you started out, are there ways to deal with or avoid common issues that entrepreneurs might be experiencing in early stages?
Are there ways to handle issues? You're saying that that people can do a better job at it? Is that the question?
It would be sort of like, if you think back to your early days, do you recall any sort of recurring issues that maybe you've also seen or noticed others experience? And if there's ways that entrepreneurs might be able to avoid these types of recurring issues?
Yeah, it's habits. I mean, it's habits. So you have a big month, you get comfortable. Habits. You make money, you spend money, and you overspend money. You know, habits. You just hire people you know, and you can't hire people that are better than you because your ego is too big where you can't hire somebody that's better than you because you're threatened by them. You're afraid of them, right? Habits. Once you learn a few little tricks to the game, you stop improving. You stop reading books. You stop developing. You stop being curious. You stop getting after like you once did. I think a lot of it is in habits. If you give me somebody that is winning at a high level consistently for a decade, okay, which is not an easy thing to do, few people do that. But if you give somebody that is winning consistently for a decade at a high level, I'm not talking low level, I'm talking at a high level. And if we were to talk to the same guy to give us other people within his same field who at one point were beating him and sit down and say, so what happened with that versus you? You will know the difference between the two people are generally habits. And habits could be what? I mean, look, let's face it. You got, I don't know if you're a sports guy, but you got a lot of athletes who were amazing, who had bad habits. Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, Lawrence Taylor. I mean, the list is a long name of lists.
Pete Rose.
Sometimes these have, yeah, Pete Rose, that's right. I remember meeting Pete in Vegas. Pete Rose, these guys had bad habits, you know, and they could have been bigger than what they were, but they had some bad habits. In business sometimes, you know, if you're running and gunning and you don't have an outlet to talk to a community that's similar to you, you may have an escape that nobody else knows about, for instance. So you can't come home and talk to your wife about the business, for instance. You're like, you know what? I just can't explain to her, because if I talk to her about the business, she's going to say, why don't you just go get a job and be an engineer like you once used to be? I told you not to start a business. So I don't want to hear it, so I don't bring it up, right? So all of a sudden I say, my escape is middle of the day, I go have 2 shots of whiskey, okay? Or my escape is, you know, I do drugs on the side, pot or cocaine or whatever it is. Or my escape is, you know, I have a gambling habit. Every one of these things I'm telling you, I have advised somebody who was going through this. And they were going through this alone because these lingering issues of them needing an escape led to these bad habits. Sometimes having an escape is talking to people similar like you, who are startup entrepreneurs, who are facing similar struggles, and preferably somebody that's maybe a phase or two ahead of you, that they can say, what you're going through is normal. Be patient. Don't make the big mistake. It's all going to work out. So you don't think you're all by yourself going through it.
Well, great insights, Pat. I really appreciate your time today, and thanks so much for speaking with us.
Hey, really enjoyed it. Great question. Thanks for having me.